what we'll do is I'll go and put the tent up, and then once I've got the tent up, I'll come back and I'll actually show you what the tent looks like with the fly sheet on, the fly sheet off, and we'll have a look at the inside of the tent. Obviously, before you put the tent out, you want to make sure the ground's free. So you just want to make sure you have as flat a piece of ground as possible. You don't want any dishing that might fill up with water if it starts to rain. You try to look for hummocks, avoid the hummocks so that you have a more comfortable sleep. Yeah, and then you just basically, you shouldn't really, so I'll just set the tent up and then I'll bring you back. Yeah, so the tent's got an inner and an outer, and so what you basically have to do is put up the inner first, and then you put your fly sheet, the outer, over the top. It's not one of those tents that you can set up the fly sheet and then put the inner in unless you have the footprint that goes with it. If you have the footprint that goes with it, you can put up the poles with the footprint, and then you can put the fly sheet over the top and then climb inside and clip it all in. I have to buy myself a footprint for this because I like that option. Don't have it at the moment, but I need to order one from the US because they're unavailable in New Zealand. So yeah, so that's what I generally do when I'm using it. I put up the inner, put the fly sheet over the top, and then it's all ready to go. The first thing we have to do is separate the inner tent from the outer tent. So that's the inner tent there, and this is the fly sheet. So we just put the fly sheet off to the side. And then just want to open your inner tent. And so basically there's a door on the on one side of the tent. You want to face the tent, the door of the tent, away from the wind so that the rain doesn't come in. And if possible, you want to probably put the head facing towards the wind because then it'll go over the top of the tent better. Yeah, and then you just have to take the poles as the next step. And just basically connect the poles up. And so the poles are all interconnected to each other. And so you have two wide poles at the end here for the head of the tent, two shorter poles for the foot of the tent. So the poles for the foot of the tent are orange on the tips, the poles for the head of the tent are black on the tips, and then in the middle you have this rod which is basically connects across the axis of the tent pole. And that's what that's the thing that holds the sides of the tent out. So once you've got your tent poles set up, you just basically lay them across the top of the tent, and then we're just going to connect it to the points on the four corners of the tent. So it doesn't matter which end you start from, you just basically have to connect the four corners of the tent with the poles. I generally start with the head and then go down to the foot, and then I'll connect up the two poles going across the middle. So I'll just do that. And then the next step is to connect the inner of the tent to the poles with these wee clips. And so you just go along and you just clip it onto the poles. Then these clips at the top go on last. Yep, so you've got your basic frame, and then these wee side poles, there's a clip on the end that you basically connect them to. And that holds out the sides of the tent for you. And so that's the basic shape of the inner tent. And then basically you just put the fly sheet over the top, and then you would do your pegging in and that kind of thing. So you have your tent inner. You can see on the sides here that the material on the tent is mesh on the top for ventilation. It has nylon material on the sides. Goes up quite a bit where the main part of your body is, just for some water resistance, and also at the end of the tent down here. And then down here on these sides it's much shorter, and so you have one door which would be on the left hand side of the tent, so the door's here. Yeah, the next step is to actually put the fly over the top of the tent. So we just get our fly here and just shake it out so that we can see which end is the foot and which end is the head. Just put it over the top. Yep, fit it to the tent, and then you just basically connect it with these connectors down here, which are just basically clip-on ones. So you clip them in on the four corners. So the Big Agnes is a freestanding tent, and the advantage with the freestanding tent is that you can pick it up and move it around. So if you find that your placement of the tent wasn't very good, you can move it to a better position. And so what you should actually do before you peg it into the ground is get into the tent and just make sure everything's feeling okay, and then if everything's feeling okay, peg it out, and then you're all ready to go. So there's the tent set up and basically pegged out. So I've just got pegs on the ends and on each side. You've also got tie down points at both ends of the tent. You have tie down points at the inner, at the edge, but I haven't bothered to put those in. This is just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Yeah, so it's quite a sturdy tent. It'll stand up to a reasonable amount of wind. Fly sheet could be a bit heavier for New Zealand conditions, but if you're careful, it's fine. I've never had any problems. I don't know if I'd want to be in Fiordland in a massive big storm in this tent. You know, I'd probably want something that's like 3,000 millimeters per hour or better, but it's certainly fine for most of the summer camping that you're going to do. Just doing a bit of a walk around of the tent. So you can see I use the red MSR pegs at the ends, and then I use the standard tent pegs on the sides here, and the other MSR pegs there. So the fly is connected to the inner with these connectors here. The foot of the tent, the connectors are orange, and so the connector here is orange and the connector to the fly sheet is orange. So that's how you know what end it is. You can tension them by pulling on these if you want more tension in the tent itself. And then there's a peg down post there with no piece of rope tie out for some reason. I must have lost it. And then there's a tie out here which you can pull out to the side. You'd want to put those out if it was going to be a windy night. And another tie down there, and there's one at the foot of the tent as well. And so you can see here the connectors at this end are grey, and so you know that that's the head of the tent. You've got some air vents on the end here which you can open up. There's a wee thing to hold them open. for summertime, just for a bit more ventilation. There's one on both ends of the tent. I always peg it out when I'm camping. You never know if a big rainstorm is going to come through the night, big rainy, windy storm. So part of the reason that the inner material, this is an American style tent. It's only a 2-3 season tent. Doesn't go all the way down to the ground. That's waterproof, the material, the inner tent, and that doesn't go all the way down to the ground. You can tighten it up a little bit, but you can sometimes get a bit of water ingress there. Yeah, so I mean that's an American feature. It's some things you don't see on New Zealand tents. The tent itself is not huge, but there is a massive big awning off to the side there. I can get my pack and boots and trekking poles in there, and even some of my wet gear, like if I've got a wet jacket. There's just the one opening, so it's got a rain flap. All of the seams are seam sealed in the factory, double stitched. The quality of Big Agnes tents is excellent. They can't be complained about. But obviously they're made for the American market because Big Agnes is an American company, and so I mean that's why the fly is just a wee bit light. I'll open up the tent and we'll go inside and have a look at the space. When you open the tent, there's a tie back point here. So on the inside there's a loop of material and you roll it back and then you just basically connect it here. So I'll just do that and come back. Yeah, tent's tied back. You can see I've got it tied back on the side here. You can see the vegetable space. If you peg it out properly, it's a wee bit bigger than that. Plenty of space. And then you've got your entrance to the tent. We'll climb into the tent and you can just see how much space I have in there. I'm inside the tent. I'll just do the doors. It's got YKK zips on it, which are the premium zips for tent doors. And so if I lay down in the tent, I've got enough space for myself. I'm between 6'3" and 6'4", and so you can see like there's a lot of space between my head and the top here, and my feet aren't all the way down to the end. I can sit up in the middle of the tent. There's quite a lot of room. There's still like 4 or 5 inches above me there. Yeah, so it fits. I should probably, when I bought this tent, I should have probably got the 2-person version because it's just a little bit wider, but it's only like an extra 150 grams. So if you are thinking about buying one of these tents, get the UL2, don't get the UL1. Yeah, this one's fine, but it would be a bit more space, and for another 150 grams, that's nothing really. There's a pocket just here by the door. There's another couple of pockets in the loft at the top up here. So, you know, you can put a light in there, or put your socks in there. There's a tie point across the tent for hanging like a string for putting your wet clothes to dry them. So, I mean, yeah, there's space in here. I actually like the colour of the fire sheet. It makes it a bit lighter and airier. Yeah, lots of tent makers in New Zealand, their tents are like really dark greens or dark blues, and they're quite dark inside. But this is really airy. You know, you can sit in here without a light and read over the summer until 10 o'clock. And then after then you'd need a hair torch, obviously. There's another tie back point there so that you can tie back the inner of the tent as well, where the door is. Yeah, just the same. So it's got the wee looping material. It's got that thing on the outside there. Just put that through the looping material, holds it all together. Yep. So dismantling the tent is the opposite of putting it up. You just basically disconnect the fire sheet, take the fire sheet off, disconnect the tent inner from the poles, and basically fold it up into a package, and then put it back into the stuff bag. So what I'll do is I will set the camera up, and then I'll take the tent down again just so you can see how it comes down. But like I say, it's exactly the same as putting it up. So I'll just take the tent down and pack it back up again. It takes about maybe 3 to 5 minutes to set the tent up, to take the tent down. Depends how much practice you've had doing it, obviously. So I'll just start taking it down. So first step is to take the pegs out. So you just go around and take out the pegs. It's a good idea to carry the peg bag with you when you're doing it. That way you know you're sticking them back in there. And then the peg bag just needs to go somewhere safe. So I've got a table just here I'm putting the stuff on. And then you just disconnect the edges of the tent. So it's just like a normal clip. Do the tent door up before you take it off. A lot easier when it's up than when it's down. Yep. And then you just lift your fly sheet off. Would be a good idea if it was windy, if you're up on a hill, to stick it in your pack, stick it under your pack, just so it doesn't blow away. But it's very, very calm here, so I'll just put it down on the ground. So then you just disconnect the pole at the top. And unhook it, starting from the middle top and working out to the edges.
And obviously if it was windy, you would have this peg down to the ground with a couple of pegs to stop it from blowing around. And then you just need to disconnect your poles.
So the poles go through these wee holes at the end of these tapes. There's a bit of pre-tension in the poles so that they bend in the right direction. Yep. And then it's just a case of folding your poles up, so I'll do that, I'll fold the poles up. So you can see it's all one big pole section. It's all connected with bungee. And then that way you've just got one pole section and it's a lot harder to lose it. You can buy new pole sections from DAC. You can buy new pole sections from Big Agnes as well. They sell them online. They also sell these. This is the connector for the end of the poles. It's like a triple connector. You can buy those from the Big Agnes site, and so then those just go back into the pole bag. And so the last step is obviously rolling the tent up. You should try rolling the tent up different ways every time you use it. If you always roll it up the same direction, you'll get crinks in the tent, and then that's a weak point, and so that's somewhere where the tent can wear and eventually break. So what I try to do is I try to fold it up in a different fashion every time I use it. Yeah, so sometimes I'll fold it crossways, fold it into the middle, and then roll it from the end, you know, different ways. So what I like to do is I put the ground down, the inner of the tent, and then the fly sheet, I'll put the fly sheet over the top, and so when I unroll it, the fly sheet's actually on top of the tent, and if it's raining it'll protect it from the rain for a wee while. Everybody's got their own way of doing these things. There's no set way. I try to fold the tent with the outside of the fly sheet facing outwards. and just get it to a similar size. And then it's just up to you how you fold it. This time, why don't we fold it into the middles and then fold it in half. So into the middle. And then I just roll it up and stick it into the bag. That's me finished for the day. Gonna head off home. I hope that's of some use to you.